DETV for another sports exclusive. I'm Nick Alessandrini. Today we're going to dive into the 8 first-round playoff games in the NBA, a little NBA playoff preview. Travel days for Joe Richmond and Jason McCall, so I'll be solo here on your Saturday morning. We'll regroup on Monday evening, but a lot to get into. Again, playoffs starting today. We wrapped up our play-in games in the association last night, and now we've got 4 good ones here on a Saturday, actually 10 minutes away from our first tip-off between the Jazz and the Mavericks, and then 4 more playoff games tomorrow afternoon as well. So because of the timing here, getting a little bit of a late start, let's jump into our first game here today with the Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks. The Utah Jazz getting the 5 seed this year. Mavericks the 4 seed, but a little bit different now. They will be without Luka Doncic, who was hurt down the stretch of the regular season, the final game, with a calf injury. Luka Doncic will be out today in Game 1. His status for Game 2 is questionable. Would be probably maybe the biggest loss of the playoffs for any team. Dallas, they improved from 21st in defensive rating last year under Rick Carlisle to 7th under new head coach Jason Kidd this season. The Mavericks and the Jazz split that regular season series 2-2. So let's talk a little bit more about the Dallas Mavericks. They can go with a small ball lineup now after trading for Spencer Dinwiddie earlier in the year from the Washington Wizards. That small ball lineup with Dinwiddie outscoring opponents by 21 points in 38 minutes. Dallas, great on defense, ranking in the top 5 in the NBA since January 1st, and they're number 7 defensively on the year for the full season. The Mavericks only allow 109 points per game, and no team allows fewer three-pointers in the league than the Dallas Mavericks. They're also top 5 in the league in three-point percentage, and they rank soundly in the top 10 in free throw prevention, assist prevention, and defensive rebound rate. So let's talk about the team they're going to be going up against, a team that struggled in the playoffs the last few years, the Utah Jazz. But they're coming into the playoffs as the number 5 seed with the number 1 ranked offense in the league in terms of being the most efficient at 116 points per 100 possessions. They're number 2 in the NBA in 2-point field goal percentage. A big part of that is Rudy Gobert inside. They're shooting 57% from the 2-point area. Top 4 in the league in terms of free throw attempts per game and three-pointers per game, and they're top 5 in offensive rebound rate and second chance points. Again, Rudy Gobert is back and healthy. He'll be anchoring the middle today. Donovan Mitchell, Michael Conley, you know the drill for the Utah Jazz. On defense, they hold opponents to under 110 points per game. That's a top 10 number there. And Utah leads the NBA in free throw prevention. So the Mavericks going to look to get to the line, but might be a little bit tougher here in the first round against the Utah Jazz. And Luka Doncic, in terms of playoff success, he's played in 10 playoff games, has the young Luka Doncic, 33.5 points per game in those playoff games. That is the best all-time with at least 10 games played. So they're going to be missing his triple-double capability, coming in on the year over 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. Doesn't get much better than that from the phenom Luka Doncic, but again, most likely out for Game 1. Definitely out for Game 1, most likely out for Game 2. The Mavs went 8-9 without Luka this year. He averages near a triple-double when playing against Utah in those meetings, and they dropped from 6th to 26th in offensive efficiency without Luka Doncic. So there's going to be some big things going on in that first game. Number 5, Utah against number 4, Dallas. Game is in Dallas. Again, no Doncic. Going to be a tough one. The Jazz are set up pretty well there here in Game 1. I'm rolling with the Jazz in my pick in about 6 games. I'm going to go Jazz in 6. Dennis, he's back on the 1s and 2s here behind the glass. He's also taking the Jazz in 6. So we're going to go with the Jazz in 6 in that first game. That's actually just moments away from tipping off, and you can catch it on ESPN. So now it's time to our Philadelphia 76ers. They're going to be in action today later on at 6 p.m. They're going to be at home at the Wells Fargo Center against the 5th-seeded Toronto Raptors. We talked a little bit about this one earlier on in the week. It was a tough start for the Raptors at the beginning of the year, 14-17 to start the season, 34-17 since December 31st. That's good again for that 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. 7-2 are the Raptors against the top 4 teams in the East, and 2 of those wins over our Philadelphia 76ers. You can see some of the highlights on your screen now. Philadelphia has allowed 106 points per 100 possessions with Thibault on the floor. Thibault, again, will be able to play games 1 and 2 in Philadelphia, will not be able to make a trip across the border up north into Canada due to him being unvaccinated. Without Thibault on the floor, the Sixers giving up 116 points. That's 10 more than they do with him on the floor. Harden and Embiid, the offense has been there. The Sixers have outscored their opponents by 16 points per 100 possessions with that combo on the floor. That's the 5th best mark among duo combinations in the NBA. But the Sixers just 7-6 with James Harden against playoff or play-in teams this year. So not a great number there, just one game above 500. A tough test with the Raptors here in Game 1. And James Harden had success in the playoffs. We know he can score the basketball. He's 3rd all-time in playoff points behind Elgin Baylor and Karl Malone without winning an NBA championship. So again, a lot of pressure. You heard Harden earlier in the week said there wasn't pressure on him and the Sixers to perform. A lot of backlash from other media around the country, and we'll see how he shows up when they're going to need him. It all starts tonight at 6 o'clock with the Sixers and the Raptors. So let's keep it moving here as we got the Sixers and the Raptors, the Jazz and the Mavericks. Let's head on over to the other game scheduled for later today, 3:30 tip-off between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Minnesota Timberwolves. What a week it's been for the Timberwolves. We remember back in that play-in game on Tuesday, they solidified their spot as the 7th seed in the playoffs. A very emotional win over Pat Beverly's former team, the Los Angeles Clippers. You saw the celebration maybe afterwards. And again, a young team may not have been there before, but they're riding a little bit of momentum as they take on one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA in the Memphis Grizzlies. Timberwolves 46-36 is that 7 seed. The Grizzlies 56-26, a great record this year for Memphis. In the regular season, it was a 2-2 split. D'Angelo Russell, though, was the big name in that series. 31 points to lead Minnesota. Morant averaged 20 in those 4 games where these two teams met. Grizzlies, obviously, they know what it's like to play without John Morant battling injuries. 20-4. They were able to keep their own without Morant on the floor. They won their 19 of their last 22 games at FedEx Forum there in Memphis, and they're just one of 3 teams to seize at least 30 home wins here in 2021-2022. Morant, he leads the NBA with 16.6 points per game in the paint, and that's where the Grizzlies do most of their damage. 3rd most in the last 26 seasons for which points in the paint have been tracked. They are the best when it comes to that statistic. They've got the 4th-ranked offense, and Steven Adams has been absolute menace on the offensive glass, a 16% offensive rebound percentage for the big man that came over from New Orleans. So Memphis able to add some more pieces. They got John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. staying healthy. Dillon Brooks, maybe the heart and soul of that team. And how about Desmond Bane, the 3-point shooter and nominee for 6th man of the year, most improved player, I guess I should say. So Minnesota, they were 15-8 since the All-Star break. We talked about that momentum. Defense has really improved, 25th to 7th, and their defensive rating from 28th to 13th. So improving on both aspects of the ball, the Timberwolves, and it all starts with those 3 guys that can score: Karl-Anthony Towns, Russell, and, of course, Anthony Edwards. Karl-Anthony Towns was a non-factor in that first game in the play-in against the Clippers. Tyronn Lue able to shut him down, but the Wolves were able to find other ways to win, and that was a big question mark for this team coming into the playoffs. Can they do it when Towns has an off game, him being their best player? And they did it very well. Edwards 30, Russell 29 in that win over the Clippers on Tuesday. Pat Beverly, obviously, you know what you're going to get out of him on the defensive side of the floor. That team's going to be ready, but they spent a lot of emotion in that win on Tuesday. Again, some people referencing that celebration of winning a championship celebration. We'll see how that momentum and emotion plays with the Timberwolves here this afternoon in Game 1 against the 2-seeded Grizzlies. We're going to keep it going to the nightcap, or I guess I should say the nightcap tonight with your Denver Nuggets and, of course, the Golden State Warriors. Number 6 versus number 3. The Nuggets 48-34, led by Nikola Jokic. And I'm going to have to throw in the Delaware kid, Nahshon Bones Highland, as well. Golden State 53-29. Curry, he will be back tonight, obviously missing the last few weeks of the regular season with that injury. He's going to be on a minute restriction. Coach Steve Kerr said a lot of variables will play into that, so he wouldn't give an exact number for that minutes restriction. Just keep an eye on Steph Curry here in his first game back at home tonight against the Nuggets. They're going to have that trio back, all playing in the playoffs for the first time since 2019. Klay Thompson back, Draymond Green, Steph Curry making his return tonight. They have played just 11 minutes together all season in the regular season. So going to be interesting. Does that muscle memory kick in? Are those 3 guys going to be able to go back in time and play like they did the last time they were on the floor together back in the playoffs in 2019? Jokic, what a year he's having. Not good enough for the MVP for the 2nd consecutive year, but what a year for Nikola Jokic. He becomes the first player ever to have 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists. And not to mention the numbers he's been averaging against Golden State this year. You see the highlights on the screen. Check out this: 28 points, 16 rebounds, and 9 assists against Golden State. Almost a 28-point triple-double for the reigning MVP Nikola Jokic. And Nuggets kind of with a little Joel Embiid feel to it. Without him on the floor, with him on the floor, they're outscoring their opponents by 8.4 points. They're getting outscored by 8 when he heads to the bench. And specifically in that series with Golden State in the regular season, they outscored Denver by 20 in Jokic's 56 minutes off the floor. So Jokic's going to have to be on the floor a lot today for Denver, and he's been able to do that here throughout his career. Big differential. Same thing goes for Stephen Curry and the Warriors. Big differential in favor of the Nuggets when Curry was off the floor. But how about this number? When both players, both former MVPs are on the floor for their respective teams, Jokic for the Nuggets and Curry for the Warriors, they have a 192 to 192. That's been the score. So they are exactly even when those two are on the floor playing against each other. How about that? And Nashon Bones Highland, Delaware kid, going to be making his first appearance in the NBA playoffs. We obviously remember his last year at VCU with the COVID and the pandemic. They were unable to play in that first-round game. They had to obviously forfeit that game. So now some postseason coming to the Delaware native, Nashon Bones Highland, who's had a great rookie year out west with the Denver Nuggets. And hopefully he'll be able to represent Delaware pretty well in the 2022 NBA playoffs. Dennis has taken the Warriors in 6. Dennis, I think I'm going to go right with you. I'm with Golden State in 6 as well. Again, depending, hopefully Curry can get back and get healthy for that matchup there tonight. We're going to keep it moving here with our NBA playoff preview. Let's head back to the Eastern Conference and get you started with the game tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. That's going to be the number 6 Chicago Bulls, who finished the regular season at 46-36. They're going to get the Milwaukee Bucks, and your defending NBA champions, at 51-31. Milwaukee 15-6 after the All-Star break, and they swept Chicago 4-0 in those 4 regular season meetings this season. The Bulls, an interesting stat here. Obviously, they've dealt with a lot of injuries. 2-21 record against the league's top 4 seeds in both conferences. So not particularly great when it matters the most for the Chicago Bulls. They're back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017, led, of course, by the MVP candidate, though further down the list, DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan, 27.9 points per game to 31.3 points in those meetings with Milwaukee. Again, no Lonzo Ball. Alex Caruso is going to be a game-time decision. He's still dealing with a back injury. No Patrick Williams. Vucevic is banged up. Levine is banged up. So that's a health issue that the Bulls have been dealing with all season long. We're going to see if they can get into a rhythm. Going to be tough for them against one of the best teams in the NBA in the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, 7-15 after that run down the stretch. They were 39-21 as early as February 24th. That was the top seed in the Eastern Conference, but 7-15 down the stretch. Those issues with health, and obviously not a great rebounding team either, 28th in the league. So it wasn't a great second half of the season for the Chicago Bulls. They're still able to get their way into the playoffs as a 6th seed. That kind of tells you how great they were in the first half of the regular season over there in the Eastern Conference. 20th defensive rating for the Bucks. They've kind of slowed down defensively after the All-Star break here as we head into the playoffs. But they're the only team that ranks in the top 8 in both three-point percentage and the percentage of their shots that come from threes, so they can hit it from all over the floor. And they outscore their opponents by 11 points per game with Giannis, Middleton, and Drew on the floor together. Holiday obviously battling some injuries this year as well, but a completely different team, at least defensively, when Drew Holiday is available for the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks, they outscored the Bulls 231-153 in the restricted area up to the free throw line. They're going to look to kill them inside as well on Sunday and in this series. I've got the Bucks sweeping the Bulls 4-0, and so does Dennis. So we're agreeing a lot today, Dennis. There is the Bulls and Bucks get a sweep in 4 games. We'll keep it rolling to the number 8 Atlanta Hawks. They win 2 play-in games. They came in as the 10th seed in the play-in, and now they get the 8th seed in the playoffs. A big win for the Hawks last night over the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that earns them a date with the top seed in the Eastern Conference. That's the Miami Heat. But what about some injury statuses here for Atlanta? Obviously, you talk about John Collins. He missed both of those play-in games, dealing with 2 injuries. His status is unknown. He'll most likely be out for the first half of this series here against Miami. And then a big loss last night. Clint Capella getting hurt in that game. He went undergone an MRI yesterday. Nothing too serious, at least that's what the team is saying. Status, though, is uncertain. He'll definitely and most likely be out in Game 1 on Sunday. So you lose both your big men if you're the Atlanta Hawks. No Clint Capella, no John Collins. That's going to be an uphill battle against the top seed in the East. Trae Young, 32 of his 38 against the Cavs in the second half, and he scored on assisted on 43 of his team's 56 points in that second half. That's more than Cleveland managed at just 40 as a team. Both of these teams like to play at a little bit of a slower pace. Trae Young, again, 28.5 points, 9.7 assists. They're going to need a big series out of Bogdanović. You saw him do it last night in the win last night over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Trae Young can't do it by himself. He's going to need some help. Without those two big guys underneath, you're going to need Kevin Huerter to really hit some shots from the outside. DeAndre Hunter's going to have to step up. And then, of course, your other guard in the backcourt, Bogdanović, going to have to show up and score the basketball as well. He's up over 15 points a game in the regular season. We saw what he did to the Sixers and throughout the playoffs last year. So look for Huerter, Hunter, and those guys to really chip in if the Hawks are going to have a shot here at Miami. Of course, Miami, they led the NBA in three-point percentage. At the same time, they were great on defending the three-point line, so that's kind of where their strengths are. The Hawks, they ranked second in offensive rating and had a league-high 7 players average at least 10 points while playing in 50 or more games. So again, those role players are going to have to step up for Atlanta. And the big thing in this game is going to be the pick and roll. Miami, the best team at defending the pick and roll. And guess who the best team at performing the pick and roll is? That's the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young. So going to be an interesting one. Probably more of a closer series, in my opinion, than you would get on usual number 8 versus number 1 here in either conference. I think this one's going to be a little bit closer than we projected. I'm going to go with the Heat, but I think it could go either way, 6 or 7 games in that first-round matchup with Miami and Atlanta. So we'll keep it rolling now to maybe the most talked-about series in the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference. That's the Brooklyn Nets, fresh off that play-in win over Cleveland. That secured them the 7th seed, and that secures them a date with maybe the hottest team in the NBA right now, the 2-seeded Boston Celtics. And obviously a great year with Coach Udoka here in his first season. With Boston, Brad Stevens moving to the front office, and a tough start for them. Kyrie Irving also going to be returning to Boston. Didn't end particularly well for Irving and the Celtics. Robert Williams, he's still hurt. They hope to get him back at some point in the first round. They're going to need him in the middle against Brooklyn. Tatum, 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. Jaylen Brown, you know what he can do. 23.5, 6, and 3.5. They have the East best points differential, plus 7.3 points per game. They were 51 and 31 with the point differential of a 62 and 20 team. So looking at the statistics there, they are pretty good. 20 and 21 at the midpoint of the season, 25 and 25 after 50 games. But what a turnaround for the Boston Celtics. They were the best team the rest of the way by a healthy margin, going 26 and 6, and they were ranked first both in offensive and defensive efficiency. So obviously the hottest team maybe coming into the playoffs, outscoring their opponents by over 15 points per 100 possessions. So Celtics, maybe the hottest team right now. They can switch everything defensively with that length and that athleticism. And of course, Durant going to be big. Kevin Durant versus Jason Tatum. Both teams take major hits when they're off the floor, as we talked about a few other star players this year. 9 players with a bigger on-off differential than Durant. One of them was Jason Tatum. Celtics 14 points per 100 possessions better with Tatum on the floor. Also, you look at Kevin Durant, 37.5 and 6.5. What a year it's been for number 7 in black. They were 23 and 9 to start the year. Hasn't been as easy, though, for the Nets since the beginning of the year. Kevin Durant missed 27 games due to injuries. Joe Harris was lost for the season, obviously with Kyrie Irving's vaccination status. He missed 29 games this year for Brooklyn. They're ranked 20th defensively, and that's kind of been the issue. When you talk Nets, the offense is through the roof, but they can't slow down. They can't stop anybody. Boston, they can do it on both sides of the floor. This should be a fantastic series. Brooklyn finished 12 and 5 down the stretch. They have been playing important games now for a few weeks as they've been working their way up. They were the 10 seed 2 weeks ago. They get the 7 seed here as we begin the playoffs. Durant, though, can he carry the load? He's been playing over 41 minutes a game here in these last few weeks, especially the last 9 games, and playing the entire second half 3 times over that stretch, especially the last 3 games. You saw him do it on Tuesday in that play-in against Cleveland. If he's able to stay healthy, again, we've seen what can happen if you have too much or rely too much on a player. With over 40 minutes a game and playing the entire second half, again, if there's somebody that can do it, it's Kevin Durant. But they're going to be able to lean on him and Kyrie Irving pretty heavily if they're going to pull out the win against the number 2 Celtics. Again, 3rd in Vegas to win the championship as a 7 seed, something you rarely see. It's going to be an interesting series with Boston and Brooklyn. Again, Brooklyn, Seth Curry, a little banged up as well, so some injuries over there on the Brooklyn side. We'll just have to wait and see how that one shapes up. That's Sunday at 3:30, Brooklyn and the Celtics. That's going to take us to our final matchup of the first round. That's the New Orleans Pelicans and the Phoenix Suns. The Suns, the best team in the regular season, the best team in basketball heading into the playoffs. They got a league best record of 64-18. They have had 12 days off since their last game with those starters. They sat them in the last game of the regular season. So 12 days since that starting lineup for the Phoenix Suns has seen any type of live basketball action. We'll see if that has a little bit of effect, if they maybe have a slower start to this one. But I don't see the Suns running into too many issues here with New Orleans. The only NBA team this season to finish in the top 5 offensive, defensive, and net rating, and they are number 1 in terms of net rating. Chris Paul leads the NBA in assists per game at over 10.8. Booker, he's a scorer, 27 points per game for Devin Booker. Then you got Mikal Bridges, who is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He was number 1 in those rankings released by the NBA at the end of the regular season. So if it was going based off of that, Mikal Bridges is your Defensive Player of the Year, but you got to wait for the votes. Pelicans head coach Willie Green, what a phenomenal job he has done this year with New Orleans. A very, very slow start, able to make some moves. David Griffin able to acquire C.J. McCollum at the trade deadline. Valanciunas in the offseason, and they made some big strides. Valanciunas 54.4% from the floor, 18 points per game, and McCollum hitting over 2.5 threes per game since he has been in a Pelicans uniform. 25-27 against the Western Conference for the Pels, an 18-32 record for New Orleans against teams over 500. Bad news for the Pelicans is the Suns are way above 500. Ingram 30 in that win yesterday, McCollum 19. How about Larry Nance Jr. battling some injuries the last few years? Great performance last night in that play-in win. Both games last night were phenomenal. How about Larry Nance? 14 points, 16 rebounds in that win over the Clippers. Clippers dropped 2 play-in games. They are now out of the playoffs. So could be a good one with the Suns and the Pelicans. Most likely not. I'm going to go with the Suns in 4 games in a sweep, and Dennis seems to agree there as well. Suns in 4 over first-year head coach Willie Green and the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll see if Zion has a chance to get back on the floor. Most likely you will not see him in these 2022 NBA playoffs. You see him doing some dunks before the games and stuff like that, but you're most likely not going to see Zion here in 2022, and that just makes things a little bit harder for New Orleans, an uphill battle against Phoenix. Again, that one on Sunday as well. Tip off at 9 o'clock Eastern on TNT. So that's everything you need to know here for the 2022 NBA playoffs. It's all underway currently with the Jazz and the Mavericks. Our Philadelphia 76ers in action tonight at home at the Wells Fargo Center against the Toronto Raptors in a 4-5 matchup in the Eastern Conference. Well, there you have it. Go watch some basketball today. NBA playoffs are underway here in 2022. I'm Nick Alessandrini for DETV.